Hey guys, another chapter 4 video here, and if you can't tell in the background, I've got a pair of crutches, I broke my leg, so I have lots of time to make lots of math videos right now. So what are we working on today? Essential question. Well, when are two functions the same? That is our essential question. When are two functions the same? And this is going to be a little bit of an introduction to what we're up to in class. So let's kind of dive into it. We're going to do a problem for these notes. I'm going to call it example 1. And the name of this problem is called buying bicycles. Do you own a bicycle? Do you have one at home? Have you ever had to buy your own bicycle? Well, that's what this problem's all about. Now, I remember buying my own bicycle in the 7th grade, actually, and it costs a lot of money. But I have a little something for you here. Who's in that picture? Any guesses? That's me, little Mrs. Near with my first blue shiny bike and my training wheels. I love that bike. I rode that bike with my little basket everywhere. But this problem's not actually about me. I just want to show you that picture. Here's what we're actually getting into. Here's our story today. Latanya and George are saving up money because they both want to buy new bicycles. Latanya opened up a savings account with $50. She just got a job and is determined to save an additional $30 per week. George started a savings account with $75. He's able to save $25 a week. So we got two people, Latanya and George, and they want to save some money, buy bicycles, and they both have a plan. They've got this bank account, they've put some money in, and every week with their jobs they're going to add more money. The question is to figure out when are these guys going to have the same amount of money in their bank account? Because they both have a little bit of a different story. So we're going to set this up. Let's get into this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to organize our work. We're going to do Latanya in one section and George in another. If it was me, I'd pick out like 2 colored pencils and I would color coordinate this a little bit. I'm going to do Latanya in blue and George in green, but you can choose your own colors and your own method of organizing. And to kind of get started, I'm thinking let's build a table. Let's organize what we know. So we're going to have one table for Latanya and we're going to have one table for George. And in this table, we're measuring what they're doing here. So if you look really closely at the story, Latanya opens up a savings account with $50 and she's saving $30 every week. So we've got dollars and we've got weeks that she's saving money. So I'm going to put in the table weeks and dollars. Those are the 2 things we're measuring, weeks and dollars. And I'll do the same thing for George over there too, weeks and dollars. Now, when we get this story started, we're starting with week 0. So I'm going to put 0 in the table. How much money does Latanya have on week 0? Well, week 0 is when she opens her savings account and she just starts. And she opens that savings account with $50. So she has $50 in week 0. But then she starts working and saving. So after week 1, she's going to add an additional $30 that week to her account. So add 30, 50 plus 30 is 80. So she now has $80 in her account. Go to week 2, add 30 more dollars. 80 plus 30, you add that on is $110. Go to week 3, add $30. She's got $140. And we could keep doing this. We could build this table out for a whole entire year if we wanted to. We could go week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7, and so on. But I'm going to get tired of doing that. So I think I'm good. I'm happy. I'm going to stop there at week number 3. But I do need to do George's table. So for George, we start at week 0. Oh, wait. Before I do, I forgot something. Back to Latanya's table. We need to show what the growth is. We were adding $30 in this table. That's going to be important later. So I'm going to make sure to show that. For George, we're going to be a little different. We're going to be adding $25. So I'm putting that in the table for George. George is different than Latanya. Now, if we're adding $30 for Latanya, let's get to George's story. George on week 0 opens up his bank account with a little bit more money. He opens up his account with $75. But he's only saving $25 a week. He's not saving as much as Latanya. So when he gets to week 1, you add $25. 75 plus 25 is 100. You get to week 2, you add on that $25. He's got $125. You get to week 3, you add $25. He's got $150. And like I said, you could keep making this table for a very long time. I just don't want to. That sounds like a lot of work. But there's some information. We've got a table for Latanya. We've got a table for George. We got something we can work with now. So let's go to our next step here, now that we kind of can see what's going on in the tables. Next step is, now that we know the growth in the table values, is to look at these two tables and think, could we graph them? Could we look at them in a graph? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set up a big graph with Latanya and George's story. Notice in my table, we don't have any negative numbers. There's no negative dollars. There's no negative weeks. That would be kind of weird. So I'm going to go first quadrant graph only. Don't have to worry about 4 quadrants. I'm going to be sure to be labeling my graph with my story. So the x-axis is going to be our weeks, which means the y-axis is going to be our dollars. And our weeks are going to be very simple, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I went all the way to 10. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. So you probably need to pause the video, grab a ruler, and start really nicely making this graph. I gotta warn you, if you're sloppy with this graph, it's gonna be really hard to get your answer. This graph is all about precision and neatness. So please be methodical, take your time, pause the video, because if you don't, your answer and my answer probably won't match up right. I've done this problem a few times, and if I don't make a nice graph, I find I make errors. Okay, so hopefully you're setting up a nice graph. So I'm going to label dollars on the y-axis. The trouble with my dollars is I don't want to do it like the weeks. The weeks I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But look at the table numbers. Latanya has $50, $80, $110, $140. We got to get up into bigger numbers. If I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I have to go all the way up into the hundreds like that. That's going to be a huge graph. So we need to change our scale. We need to go by a bigger number. Like we could count by 10s or 20s or 30s. We could count by 25s. We got to choose something bigger. And I chose to go by 25s. I thought 25s would work good. So I'm going to scale it out. Starting at 0, I'm going to go 25, then 50, 75, 100, and so on. Just to fill this up. And I'm going to go kind of a ways up. I want to go farther than my week 3 table value. So I'm going to go all the way up this, hopefully get up to about 200, well, I think I'll get all the way to 300, really. Okay, so once we set up that y-axis, next step I'm going to do, remember I'm color coordinating this, so I chose blue and green, my favorite Seahawks colors, and I'm going to make Latanya blue and George green, so I'm putting a little blue box and a green box by George. That's going to be my key so people understand my graph. And then I'm going to plot the points right from the table using my colors, probably starting with Latanya. She seems like a good person to start with. So we're going to take Latanya's numbers here, and we're going to look at week 0 where she had $50. And we're going to go to our graph, and we're going to carefully put a point at 0 and 50. There it is. I hope you can see it. Then we're going to go to the next week, which is at $80. Now on my scale, there's not a perfect spot for 80, so I'm going to have to estimate. Here's $75. I'm going to have to go a little bit above 75 and go to 80. That's my best guess. Then I'm going to go to week 2, where Latanya, if you look in the table, has $110. So we're going to place that on the graph. And then I'm going to go to week 3, where Latanya has $140. And I'm going to estimate. This is where the precision in your graphing is so important. If your graph is sloppy, your points are not going to be estimated very well on the graph. Now it looks pretty linear. It looks like a line to me. So I'm going to take my ruler now and connect those points and extend them with a big arrow. So here's my line for Latanya. It looks pretty good. I did it all in blue because that was the color I chose for Latanya. Now it's time for George. So George has different values. He starts at 0 and 75. 0 and 75. Okay, so let's put that point on the graph, 0 and 75. Well, that one's going to be a little bit easier because we went by 25s on the scale, so I'm actually kind of happy about that. Then we're going to do week 1, which was $100 for George. George's graph is going to be simpler because it's in 25s. Here's week 2 at 125. Man, those lines are really close. I bet yours are on your paper too. And then here's week 3 at 150. They almost look like they're touching, but they're not. I'm going to connect my line, draw it as carefully as I can with my ruler, and we have a point of intersection. Now, if you were super neat with your graphing, this is what you should have. You should have a point where these two lines cross each other, right here at this spot that I just circled in red. And for me, that looks like it's at week 5. At week 5, it looks like these two people, Latanya and George, both have $200 in their bank account. They have the same amount of money at week 5. That's that point of intersect. So I'm going to label it on my graph as 5, 200 because that coordinate point is where it crosses. Then from there, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to label George's line and Latanya's line using my colors. And now that we know when they have the same amount of money, we've kind of answered our question. But I want to add one more piece to this. I would like, since it's algebra, to assign an equation to Latanya and George. And we totally can do that because we have growth and we have y-intercepts. We have our y equals mx plus b. We've figured that out. Let's see, Latanya, she's growing $30 in her bank account. So we know it's a y equals 30x rule. The plus b part is going to be her y-intercept, which was at 50 bucks. That's where she started her bank account. So there's her equation, y equals 30x plus 50. George is growing $25 every week, so his y equals 25x, and he started with $75. So y equals 25x plus 75. That would be George's equation. Okay, so let's see, what are we going to do next? Well, we need to write a sentence. We need the person who is reading our work to see that we really clearly understand what we're doing. So here's my sentence I'm going to write. At week 5, both George and Latanya will have the same amount of money. They will have $200. It's a clear statement. People can read it. They know that I've found my solution. It makes sense. Week 5, $200. And if you back up and look at our work, I'm going to zoom out so you can see all of this. Look how nice and organized it is. I mean, this is what I hope your work on your paper looks like. I would imagine if you're writing this out, you have a full page filled up, maybe 2 pages. You've got Latanya with a nice table. You've got George with a nice table. You've got this organized graph that's color-coded and labeled. You've got 2 equations for each person, 1 for each person. And you've got a sentence. This is some good-looking work. And this is when 2 functions, 2 lines, are intersecting. They cross, and that point of intersect is so important. It's the explanation. It's the answer to our question of when will they have the same amount of money. Week 5, $200. So, big idea here is we call this a system. This is a system of equations. You should write that down because that's the big theme of this chapter. Well, actually, this chapter and next chapter more. But a system is when you have 2 functions and you're trying to figure out something about them. Where do they cross? What's going on? This is a systems problem. All right, guys, so we're definitely practicing this in class. I hope that your Latanya and George graph turned out just as well as mine. Got a little advantage doing it on my computer. When you do it by hand, you sure have to be neat and nice, but that's the fun part of algebra. I love that part. And we'll practice in class. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later.